Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spend More Time with Family, Revit Families webinar. My name is Juliana, and I work in marketing here at MicroCAD. And today's presenter is Sandra Bolgemuth, our applications specialist. Today, we will touch on the different family categories, a little bit about title block families and map connectors. And if time permits, a bit about the advantages of having multiple types in one family. As you know, throughout the webinar, you can ask a question at any given point on the left-hand corner. You can ask Sandra to revisit a step or ask any questions. This is your time, and we want you to make the most of it. And in the upper left-hand corner, you will find links to our social media website and our YouTube channel. You can check that one as we post all of our webinars there at the end. So you can share with colleagues or rewatch it on your own time. And without further ado, we'll pass it on to Sandra. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, Juliana. Thank you for that very nice introduction that you made of me. Let me start sharing my screen. Cool. So, let me introduce myself. My name is Sandra Bolgemuth. I have been an applications engineer or solution specialist at MicroCAD for a couple of years now. I also have a background as a BIM-CAD manager with an MEP engineering firm. I occupied that job for 6 years. And today we're going to be talking about families. Not our family, not your family, not my family, but Revit families, our families. And it, again, with Revit, it is always about getting more done with every click. And at the end of the game, always remember that clicks take time and time is money. So let's make our clicks really count and really learn about families. So we're going to spend a little bit of time in PowerPoint. I apologize in advance because the slides that you're going to see are huge text. I'm not going to read about them. I just want to have them there. So the first one, Revit Families. Revit Families is defined as a group of elements with a common set of properties. And those properties we're going to call parameters. And I'm going to spend some time, long time talking about parameters, because if you need to understand families, you need to understand parameters. And then every family will have either a graphical 2D representation or a volumetric representation of what it represents in real life. You have different type of families in Revit. You have families that you can have from Revit out of the box, or you can have them from your own library. And then there are families that need to live inside the template. Within the families, if I have, for example, a table, and I want to have 3 different sizes of that table, it will make sense to create on that same family different types that will help you keep a reduced family library. They tend to become humongous in companies because you end up wanting to create everything. So you will have examples of typical component families are your desks, chairs, cabinets, structural columns. For MEP, you have all your diffusers, all your electrical connectors, all your plumbing fixtures. All those are families. And in those families, you will give them their purpose, you will give them their materials, you will join together elements that have similar geometry and similar use, and you will create them as a one family with different types. And I'm going to expand on that because it can be carried through to whole kinds of consequences. So there are three base types of families. You have system families. System families have to be created, or they have to live in a template file or in a reference file. They can be transferred over through the transfer standards command. System families are your basic building blocks. They are your walls, floors, roofs, ceilings, railings, ramps, stairs, all your dimension types, all your line types, all your text types, all your regions. Those are system families. They gotta live in your template. Then you have component families. They're loadable families. They're everything, basically, that are not system families. So anything that you can think of that you would like to put in your model, from a tree to a electrical receptacle, passing through cabinetry, your home appliances, everything will be component families. You get a whole bunch of them with Revit out of the box. There is a whole bunch of them acquirable for free over the internet. And those are the ones that I'm going to concentrate today about creating. The last type of families that I want to mention is the in-place families. In-place families are families that are created and are unique to one model. You can, and I would just create them in a extreme case of customization. Reason why creating families, and through the class today, through the webinar today, you will see that creating families is involved. So for me to create a family that is just usable in that one project where it was created, it kind of irks me, kind of twists my brain. So I stay away from the in-place families. But I need to mention them. If I'm talking about families, I need to talk about parameters. The same as I'm talking about your family and not mentioning Aunt Sally, right? Parameters are the elements, the properties that make your families intelligent. Okay? They store and they communicate information, and they allow you to manipulate your families and make them flexible and pliable in all sorts of ways. So we have, and we're going to recognize three different types of parameters. And the global parameters here right now, they are in because I'm talking about parameters and I need to mention them, but they're not related to families per se. So for families, we need to talk about project parameters, and project parameters, they are containers of information that you define, and you can apply them to multiple categories or elements in a project. They are very cool because if you, let's say you apply a project parameter to your windows, and then for whatever reason you go to the Anderson website and you bring in an Anderson window to your project, and because you created that parameter as a project parameter that is applied to windows, the minute you insert that window into your project, it will get that parameter. And that is very cool. Disadvantage of the project parameters is that they cannot be shared with other projects, starting with. So again, they need to live in the template file. And they are not, you cannot use them. You can use them in schedules, but you cannot use them for tags. So that brings me to the next type of parameters, which are the shared parameters. And as long as this text is, that is as complicated as shared parameters are. Shared parameters are parameters that live on a txt file, on a text file outside of your model. It needs to be placed in a central location so that all your users and your organization have access to it. Revit can look at a shared parameter, only at one shared parameter file at the time. They need to be really thought about and organized and created. The huge advantage of the shared parameters is that they allow me to create schedules where I can display different family categories through a multi-category schedule. They allow me to reuse parameters across different projects and across my whole organization over the life cycle of my organization. Disadvantage is that if I acquire a family, and when I say acquire, is when you go to me acquire and Revit is you go on the internet and you find stuff and then you get stuff. So when you acquire a family and that family does not have your shared parameters, you have to push them into that family. There are places on the internet that give you solutions for that. I like to do that on foot because I like to have control over what I'm doing. So without further ado, let me jump onto the interface. Okay, and here I created a simple building, and I'm going to talk about basically all our families, and I'm going to start giving a brush up over the top over systems families. And it's not systems as understood here. They're Revit system families. So let's grab this wall. Let me change the type to a really complex wall. And then let's investigate what makes this type, what makes this family. And you need to come here to the edit type dialog box. And the structure of that type is what creates that system family. All the system families have a little bit of a similar way of behaving. If you start a floor command and you go to edit type, you find the same in the structure, you find the same type of dialog box. So those are your system families. Again, as I said before, walls, floors, roofs, ceilings, for architecture, for MEP, your duct and your pipe, and for electrical, your conduit and cable tray. All those are system families. Moving away from them, let me return this to my generic 8-inch wall, trusted guy. Let me start talking about the door family and different types within a door family. And this is a door family that I created that goes a little bit beyond of the Revit out of the box family because it is called a single flush with an adjustable swing. First thing that I want to point out to you is that this family is a family that has a whole bunch of types. The types in a door family are given by going to the edit type and adjusting these parameters for height and width for it. How do you end up getting this information into a family? Let's go a little bit deeper into our investigation of what families are. Notice that when you have a component family selected, and notice I'm going to go and select different families. There is one button that is common for all of them. On the ribbon, the minute I select the component family, I get this edit family option. The Edit Family option brings me to this other interface in Revit, which is called the Family Editor. Okay, in the Family Editor, it's like a simplified, different version of your regular version of Revit, of the Revit that you're used to. Right? So you have a project browser and you have properties. And you have a whole bunch of tabs up here on top that allows you to do a whole bunch of different actions. Normal Revit. But if I go to the ground floor, and let's start a little bit, let's start talking a bit, pardon me, about the intelligence in a family and what drives that intelligence in the family. So if you notice, I have reference planes, and I'm going to highlight two basic reference planes, which are the reference planes that come basically from every family that comes from Revit out of the box, out of your family template. By the way, Revit out of the box has a whole bunch of given family templates. Always start, when you're going to start to create a family, start from one of the pre-made families, or make sure that you start from the correct template. Okay, that is very important. So we have parameters. One is called parameters. We have given reference planes. This reference plane is called the center, left, right. And this, there should be another reference plane. Oh, no, sorry, this is a door. The template for this family brings the wall with it. Okay? By adding reference planes onto your families, you can add dimensions. This is a dimension. And then to that dimension, you add a label. By creating that label, what you are adding, what you're creating is parameters. Okay? And by changing the parameter, you will change the location of the reference planes. Once you have, in basic family creation workflow, you start the family, you create reference planes, you create your dimensions, you place your labels, and then you do something that is called flexing the family. You make those parameters move. Once things move the way you want them to move, then you add geometry to it. And then that geometry, if I select this, this is a sweep. Actually, it is an extrusion. If I choose to edit this extrusion, it will tell me on what view it was created. And if I select any of these lines, you will start seeing these constraints. And that means that my extrusion is constrained to the reference planes that created it. Okay, so there you see all the different dimensions that it had. So the dimensions are going to be my first line of parameters. And then once I make them into a label, they turn into a parameter. Once I have them as a parameter, I can make different types by changing the creating new types. Now, parameters within a family can be investigated, and usually when I get new families, I come in here to the family editor and I start investigating them. How do I investigate them? I click here on this edit parameter, right? So that is a built-in parameter. Didn't mention them before. You're gonna say, you said three parameters. Built-in parameters, they come in with Revit. They come in with the interface out of the box, and you can leverage them for a whole bunch of things, because they can be both scheduled as well as tagged and used for formulas. Okay. When a parameter is a type parameter like this parameter, it means that it will control the family by type. So if I want to change it, I will need to create a new type. Okay, that was a whole bunch of information. When you're working with families, always have a background model open. And then if you're still going to edit this family any further, you need to go load into project, leave the family open in the background. If you're happy with the edits that you did to the family, you can choose load into project and close. So that is a very simple door. What I made extra for it is that it has a element parameter, which is the swing angle, that allows me to change the angle in which it opens. There are architectural firms that like to do that to give less relevance to certain doors, or to show existing doors. Now, those parameters and those reference planes can become very complex. Let me open up this or the door family. This is a window family, sorry. And let's go to the floor plan view. And now it got really complex, right? And this complexity sometimes makes me shy away from getting families from the web, because at some point, I mean, thank God this is a very comprehensively created family. And if I go to the family types, here you have the organization of all those parameters. Okay, and all those parameters were things that you brought in either as dimensions, or that you created a parameter for a material. So when you're going to create a parameter, your options to create a new parameter, let's imagine that we're going to create a new parameter, and your options for new parameters are text, integer, angles, area, cost, distance, length. Very cool parameter, the yes and no parameter. Let me cancel out of here, cancel out of here, cancel out of here, load into project and close. Those are window parameters, the window families. They are all coming out of Revit out of the box. Let me show you an annotation family. The typical annotation family is a title block. Title blocks, again, if you select it and you go to edit family, title blocks are comprised of lines, text elements, and labels. Labels, this object here is not a text element, it's a label. And again, label is a way of connecting, guess what? Parameters to my interface. So if I click here on edit, for sheets, you have a lot of given parameters, and you can create your own shared parameter file and link those shared parameters through this command here and add a different parameter, and that way start creating your title block family. Title block families have one little thing that right now seems to be hidden, and it's the revision schedules, okay, that need to be added to them. So that is an annotation family. Just to remind you, title block families define the size of the title block. So if I measure this title block, this is a 42 by 30 title block. It's my big title block. Okay, so that is another kind of family, and all these are labels. This is a sheet name, a sheet number, and that is what allows me to have in my family and fill out this information, for example, through the project information dialog box. Another very cool, and I'm very proud of this little family, this is a generic annotation family, and it's just a 2D family, but it's a key plan that has yes no parameters that allow me to turn the areas and their annotation on or off. Okay, so very cool for key plans. How is it done? If I edit the family, it has some background. This is the footprint of the project. And then it has a filled region. And I created in the types, I created families. These are parameters. If we investigate what these parameters are, they are yes, no parameters. Yes, no parameters allow you to turn things on or off. And then I grab this filled region and I associate the visibility to a parameter. Okay, that is another annotation family. Let me go back to the floor plan. The use of a comprehensive shared parameter file and the use of creating multiple types within one family. I have this receptacle family here. And right now, if I click on the type selector, notice that it has like almost 15 or 20 types. Right? And I can change the type of it. So if I choose to use an emergency receptacle, it changes the graphics of it. So it is the creation of these type of families, and then it has a subscript. And the subscript is a shared parameter. Okay, so I'm going to show you this family real fast in the last couple of minutes that I have. So in the family editor, if I go back to my reference level, if I zoom in, it looks like a myriad of elements mounted on top of each other. These are all 2D generic annotations. How can I see the different types individually? Right now, it is showing the visibility duplex receptacle. Now we know already something that is called visibility. It's a yes-no parameter, right? Down here in the family editor, you can turn the visibility on. And then from whatever type, let me minimize so that you can see. If I change this to my emergency and click apply, there I see the different graphics. So it's just a family with a lot of nested families, annotation symbols nested onto them. Where is, let me cancel out of this before I leave. This family has a shared parameter added to it. And the shared parameter that is added to it is called the subscript. How do I know that it is a shared parameter? When I select it, I can come here and choose edit parameter, and then it tells me that it is a shared parameter. Where do I use it? How do I use it? That's fine. Here, when I want to tag it. And this is a tag that is looking for that subscript. Okay? So right now, this family is the GFI switch, but if I change it to the standard plus 42 inches, it picks up that subscript because it is filled out in the family type. Now, there is a way of making families really, really, really complex, and then sometimes it doesn't make sense. Okay, and I'm going to mention this with this one MEP plumbing fixture family. It is an MEP family. It doesn't have the porcelain for the plumbing fixture. And it doesn't have the porcelain for the plumbing fixture because it only has the connectors. And in this one family, notice that the name of the family is called cold water, hot water, waste. And right now it is a hand sink. And it's calling for the connectors that it has, right? So the plumbing fixture is a plumbing fixture that contains cold water, hot water, and waste. And then out of that one plumbing fixture, you can have all these different types. Where does it save you? It saves you space in your company library. Where does it become a little bit cumbersome is in the understanding on how that family was created. Sometimes you will really need to get into the brain of the person that created the family. And with that said, let me jump back up to my PowerPoint presentation. Let me remind you, most importantly, what I want you to take home from this presentation is that we here at MicroCAD are here to support you and to ensure that you are successful in your Reviteering. We will help you create any families you need, or I will help you get trained into how to create all kinds of families. And you can create everything. I mean, I think at some point I even created a horse as a Revit family. So, with that said, I am going to open up the floor for questions.
Thank you, Sandra, for that wonderful presentation. And as a reminder for everyone, you can ask a question on the left-hand corner. And our first question is, do you advise to get families from the web?
Okay, I like that question because I touched on that, and there I'm going to expand a little bit. Go to reputable places. There is one place in the web called BIM Object. You can download Revit Families for free. Uh, it has a whole bunch of families, and they do a little bit of weeding out of the families they have. There is a very old website from long time ago called Revit City. You can get families there. Everybody uploads families into Revit City, so you really need to be able to weed the good from the bad. My advice is start, if you need families that are not in the out of the box library, try to create your own families. Unless you need an absolute precise vendor. Next question. I hope that
Thank
answers
you.
the question.
I hope that answers the question. And the second question we have is, how difficult is it to create your own custom families?
We teach in MicroCAD, we have a class that is geared to that specifically. And I am always available for one-on-one tutoring on making you a really successful Revit family creator. So to me, that is the best answer to that question.
Thank you. And our last question is, how detailed should the families be?
Ah, love this question. Love this question. You have to keep in mind what you're creating your families for. You have to keep in mind, the second thing that you have to keep in mind is that highly detailed families are going to make your Revit model very heavy. And Revit models are, to begin with, extremely heavy. So always find the in between on the information that you want to convey versus how nitpicky or how Sims city type Dewey you're going, how much Barbie dolling you're doing. Don't Barbie doll it too much. It is not necessary. I have created high-end renderings, and that level of detail, that minuscule level of detail that brings into the model all the way up to the last bolt just makes your model very heavy, and it's not worth it.
All right. Thank you so much, Sandra. And if you want to learn these topics in detail, you can always take a custom training with Sandra or someone else in our team. We also offer group classes online, so be sure to be checking the MicroCAD website for future webinars. And that concludes our webinar today. Thank you everyone for attending, and thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Juliana, and thank you everybody for joining us today.
Bye-bye.
Bye.